Hello, welcome back to Planet 40k. Today we're continuing on with our Dynasty tactic videos and we're going to be focusing on the Sautekh Dynasty today. Before we do, random shout out of the day goes to Illiterate Brian for his comment on the Ghost Arcs and the Warriors. So shout out to you. Also guys, you may be aware most of the videos on the channel are dictated by polls that we are doing. So keep your eyes out for regular voting polls in your subs box or find them in the community page. I'll put a link in the description if you need help finding it. And if you do want to support the channel, you can join our new YouTube members area by clicking the join button. So as for the Sautekh Dynasty, another shooty based code is going to have the following ability. It's got Relentless Advance. So each time a morale test is taken for a unit with this code, you can reroll the morale tests. And instead of following the normal rules for rapid fire weapons, model with this code, shooting rapid fire weapons make double the amount of shots at 18-inch range, which is always going to be more than what they normally can do with rapid fire. Then when using the protocol of conquering tyrants, you can use both the directives instead of just picking the one. So the morale test part is a bit so-so this edition, as failing one isn't as devastating as it used to be in past editions, but it's still a nice perk, especially on a large unit. Getting the extra range for rapid fire works hand in hand for a shooty faction that wants to stay at range but still wants to put out a lot of gunpowder. Then the command protocol associated to the Dynasty, which is the protocol of conquering tyrant. So let's go through that. So directive 1, you're going to add 3 inches to the range of the unit's aura abilities to a maximum of 12 inches, and you're also going to increase the range of the following abilities by 3 inches, which is the Lord's Will, My Will Be Done, and Rites of Reanimation. In the second directive, the unit is eligible to shoot in a turn in which it fell back, but if it does, until the end of the turn, each model making that range attack will subtract 1 to their hit roll. So directive 1, for all those buffs related to the core units in particular, usually from your overlords, your lords, maybe your technomancer, stuff like that. And directive 2 is extremely useful, allowing you to fall back and shoot at -1 to hit penalty, but needs to be timed in the right command protocol, which is not always straightforward. Predicting when your shooter units are going to be trapped in melee can be a challenge. Also, a Royal Warden has the ability permanently and without the -1 to hit penalty, although that obviously costs you 75 points. So looking at this Dynasty code's ability and the protocol related to the Sautekh code, they seem to feed into the idea of using core units and mid-range rapid fire weaponry. Warriors are an obvious answer to this, as they can opt to fire their Gorse Flayers, which are 24-inch range with rapid fire. So usually you would be fine at 12-inch range to get the double shots, but it's now 18 inches, so they're gaining an extra 6 inches to fire double shots. So let's look into the unique options that units with this code can have. So firstly, starting with a Warlord trait. You've got Hypological Strategist, so where your Warlord is on the battlefield, each time you spend a command point on a stratagem, you can roll a d6, and on a 5+, you get that command point back. Now this is limited to 1 command point per round, as mentioned in the big rules book, but it's still not too bad. A third of the time you get a CP back. So what I would recommend here is spending a command point pre-game on rarefied nobility to have a second warlord trait within your army to ensure that you've got this on at least one of your characters. The trait's going to easily compensate for that CP you spend. You'll at least get 1 back during the game. So I'd always advise taking this if you do play Sautekh and take a second trait. The unique relic is called Vanquisher's Mask. So at the start of the fight phase, you can select 1 enemy unit within 3 inches of the bearer. The unit is not eligible to fight this phase until all eligible units from the army have done so. So this doesn't quite link with the shooty approach to the faction, but this is really useful nearby friendly melee units. Our Codex in general doesn't really have that many ways of getting to fight first, and it does specifically say that the unit is not eligible to fight until all your Necron guys have fought, which means they also cannot pay to interrupt. The unique stratagem is very useful. Methodical Destruction, it's 2 command points used in the shooting phase after a Sautekh unit has finished making its attacks at range. You select 1 enemy unit that was targeted by the attack, then until the end of that phase, each attack made by any Sautekh unit against that enemy unit will add 1 to their attack's hit rolls. So this is great on a few levels. Firstly, it's not restricted to core units only. Those types of units are normally aided with the My Will Be Done ability anyway, so this is for all the other units as well as the core units. So whether it be your Doomstalker, your Doomsday Arcs, maybe your Locust Heavy Destroyers, Doom Scythes, that sort of thing. The only part of this that you need to remember is 1 single unit must make its attacks on that enemy unit before the stratagem can be triggered. The best option here is to waste something that's doing minimal damage, maybe a Staff of Light, or if you're firing something else, maybe split fire so a single warrior can target the unit you want, just so that you can trigger the stratagem. As mentioned, warriors already gained the My Will Be Done ability, so they probably won't need that +1 to their hit roll, and they don't stack together, which you're capped at a -1 or a +1 to the hit rolls. So once you have popped the stratagem, there is another trick that you can do, which is when you use a Triarch Stalker's range weapons into the same unit. Now the Triarch Stalker will not gain the +1 to hit, as it's not a Sautekh Dynasty unit, it's a dynastic agent, so it can't benefit from that +1 to the hit rolls. But now you've just done something else. Triarch Stalkers have an ability called Targeting Relay. Each time the model makes a ranged attack against an enemy unit, If a hit is scored, until the end of the phase, each time any other friendly Necron models make a ranged attack against that enemy unit, you reroll hit rolls of a 1. What this now means is army-wide, against that one particular unit, you're a +1 to hit and you're rerolling 1s. So make sure you're doing this trick on something worthwhile. Don't be using it on a 5-man unit of intercessors, as you shouldn't really have any trouble clearing them. Maybe a unit of bikes or terminators perhaps, or maybe a large unit of say poxwalkers or some sort of other horde unit. It needs to be a unit that's going to carry a lot of wounds. And going back to that Triot Stalker, you need to equip him with something that's got a lot of shots, just to ensure that he hits, because he has to actually hit, not just target the enemy unit. So let's go through some options when you're talking about building a Sautekh Dynasty force. So there's a few named characters within the code that are actually quite good if you do play Sautekh. If you play Necrons in general, then they're not so good as they're tied to the dynasty. Firstly, you've got Sautekh the Stormlord, who's an overlord with the Pharaon keyword, so he's buffing multiple core units at once with his My Will Be Done ability. He's another way of getting extra CP back with his Grand Strategist ability, giving you 2 command points pre-game. And he's also got a unique ability called Lord of the Storm, which is a once per battle only ability, which is effectively a lightning bolt that dishes out mortal wounds at a 48-inch range, and it then bounces onto other enemy units. He's then got 2 ranged weapons, one being the Gauntlet of Fire, which is basically a heavy flamer with the assault keyword, then the Staff of the Destroyer, which is 3 strength 6 shots with -3 AP and 2 damage, which is perfect against power armor. It also doubles as a melee weapon with the same stat, so he's actually quite good. They've then got Nemesis Andrek, which is another overlord tied to this code. Not a Pharaon this time, but he has his own unique buffs. Once per battle, he's got the ability to block a single stratagem for an entire battle round, which is crazy good when you time that correctly. He's also got Transient Madness to buff a friendly core unit with a random ability, either a +1 to their attacks, +1 to the ballistic skill, or a reroll to the charge rolls. Now 2 out of 3 of those are more melee based, which seems a bit odd for this dynasty, so that one may not actually come into play for you. Then he's got a Staff of Light, so he's another solid option for a similar cost to Sautekh the Stormlord. Now I do prefer Sautekh, however Nemesis Andrek has something in the book that no one else does, which is a personal bodyguard. So the personal bodyguard is Vargon Oberon, is 100 points, is a named lord, and is highly skilled in combat. Hits on 2s with strength 7 war scythe, that's -4 AP and 2 damage. He's got a few abilities inbuilt which link with Zandrek quite well. So firstly, if Zandrek is in your list, which he will be if you're taking Oberon, then Oberon won't be taking up a slot in your detachment. Secondly, range attacks can never target Nemesis Andrek while Oberon is within 3 inches of him, so not even snipers. Then thirdly, he's got his Ghost Walk mantle, so he can teleport back to Zandrek in the movement phase from anywhere on the board. As he's got dimensional translocation, i.e. deep strike, he can come in on his own, slice and dice, then later on he can teleport away towards Nemesis Andrek. Then of course he's got the Lord's Will, so he's going to be buffing core units to the rerolls of 1s to hit, which is a nice combo when you stick it both with the My Will Be Done ability on a warrior blob, hitting on 2s and rerolling 1s at rapid fire at 18-inch range with this code. And he can also even fight after he's killed, which is a nice little bonus. So that's your dynasty specific units. We've briefly mentioned the warriors. They are a key to this dynasty as most of the rules and characters are built around them. So these are really your bread and butter when you're making a Sautekh dynasty. And as we already know, take warriors in 20s. Going back to those characters, the only drawback here is none of them can take a resurrection orb. You think at least one of them had access to a resurrection orb, as the dynasty is built upon warriors. Now another unit that fulfills that same role as the resurrection orb is a Ghost Ark. Now instead of using a natural orb, the Ghost Ark can repair D3 warriors per turn, or D6 with the stratagem, which is Reconstitution Protocols for 1 command point. You can put 10 warriors in that Ghost Ark, but warriors work best in 20s. Also the Gorse Flays on your Ghost Arks are the exact same rapid fire weapons as the warriors carry, so they're going to benefit in the exact same way with the rapid fire ability from the Dynasty code. So building a list, I'd consider Sautekh or a generic Overlord. Now this can be a command barge, but you don't really need speeds as they shoot at 18-inch range with rapid fire, so going on foot works just fine. I'd make an Overlord a Pharaon by spending 2 command points on him with a Hand of the Pharaon stratagem, which can allow him to use his My Will Be Done ability on 2 different units, and not forgetting that Warlord trait, so you've got a third of a chance of getting command points back each battle round. So what I'd do is I'd probably take at least 2 units of 20 warriors. I'd give each of them a Ghost Ark for added firepower and also to repair those lost warriors. You could use one single Ghost Ark, but if you wanted to split the 2 units into different areas of the battle, then the Ghost Ark is only going to go with one of them. So having 2 allows for more flexibility and also makes you less predictable. You can also make use of the Disintegration Capacitor stratagem when you've already got your warriors hitting on 2s. And it's only 1 command point, and I thought it's worth a mention here. So what this stratagem does is with your Gorse weapons, if you hit on an unmodified hit roll of a 6, you're automatically wounding the target. And obviously with a 20-man warrior blob with rapid fire. That's a lot of shots and a lot of hits, so there should be plenty of 6s coming out of that. The only issue I see with warriors is you're funneled into using the flayers instead of the strength 5 reapers, which seems to be the better option in general, but for Sautekh you're almost forced into using Gorse Flayers. If you take the generic Overlord, you can take a relic, and you can obviously select from the Warlord traits, so you would want that Sautekh trait, but as mentioned, give the trait to a secondary character for the CP, and give your Warlord something that you may find useful in the game, maybe Thrall of the Silent King to add 3 inches to the auras and Marble Be Done ability, just so you can spread out a bit more with your 2 warrior blobs and Ghost Arcs. You don't want anything castled up because you'll be losing board control if you do, and most of your army is going to have objectives secured if you're warrior heavy. Now you can take Immortals for some backline presence. Now Immortals don't really benefit as much as warriors from the code, as they already rapid fire at 15-inch range, but they do gain 3 inches, and hey, 3 inches is a lot. Tomb Blades also have that 15-inch rapid fire with their Gorse Blasters, but they're not likely to be targeted by Mind Will Be Done, as they move much faster than your Overlord models. This may be where a command barge works better. Something else that may see some use in the Sautekh list, now I can't forgive myself for saying this, but a Canoptic Reanimator. Now bring this thing with tons of warriors can be somewhat useful. I personally wouldn't, but the debate does continue in the comments. I personally don't see it bringing back enough warriors on an exact roll of a 4 just to justify a spot, but a lot of people in the community have had some success with them, and maybe with some Ghost Arcs and even Technomancers, which I've yet to get into, could be a good plan. So yeah, Technomancers also synergize with your warriors with the Rites of Reanimation ability, allowing D3 to be reanimated each turn. You can also use this with other units such as Immortals, but you're only going to get 1 back. So using the Technomancer is really going to make your Silvertide an everlasting robotic mob. Now Illumina Zarez and Orokin the Divine have similar buffs, but I quite like the Technomancer because he's not named and he can take Cryptek Arcana, he can take Relic, and also buffs other units within your list such as Canoptic units. Get yourself a Tryout Stalker as mentioned too for that targeting relay, as well as his own weapons that are pretty good. Tomb Blades in fast attack, maybe some Scarabs alongside that. Can't really go wrong with Scarabs. I love linking them with Spiders in particular for some backline defense in melee. I have a full unit of 3 of them, so that Technomancer can bring 1 back with his Arcana and give them a +1 to hit. But Scarabs are really there to screen your warriors. You don't really want your warriors in melee unless you're bringing multiple Royal Wardens or waiting for that protocol of Conquering Tyrant, so you need to get out of melee to be using those rapid fire weapons effectively. So maybe take a Royal Warden just in case. Then either the Royal Warden or the Technomancer can have that second Warlord trait for that CP return as mentioned. Now in this list, unless you're buffing a Doomstalker with the Technomancer, I'd be more inclined to select a Doomsday Arc as a heavy option just for the extra Gorse weapons going at 18 inches, as it's so valuable in this dynasty. So that's all the units I'd go with. As for a top 3 units within this dynasty, Warriors are an obvious first choice. They're just so good in almost any dynasty. I mean, they can even work in the Novak dynasty. Immortals I'll probably put there too, with the extra 3 inches to their rapid fire range and their toughness 5 as well, so they're going to be holding your backline down. Then I think I'd say the third choice would be Ghost Arcs. Not only are they hard to shift, but they return your warriors back and they can soak up a lot of firepower with their quantum shielding, which can also be buffed with a stratagem as well. Then honourable mentions go for Technomancers, Imitate the Stormlord, Tomb Blades and the Canoptic Reanimator. So that about wraps up the Sautekh Dynasty code, guys. Make sure you subscribe for more Necron content and like the video if you find it somewhat useful, and remember to get in the comments for a chance of a random shout out each and every video. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you in the next one.